This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. I am Dr. Duke, and I am joined today by Dr. Jake Jacobs. Jake, how are you today?
Fantastic, Dukas.
Did you have a nice... you're retired, so Labor Day, what is that for you, right? Just another one of your glorious days off?
Well, at least it's not May Day, Commie Day or something. I was with my daughter and my wife down in Milwaukee having a wonderful vacation down there.
Very nice, very nice. And so we have some interesting stories for you today. The climate scam. I mean, between the threats coming from the government that masks are going to be coming back, coupled with all of this blaming every nasty, stupid decision that Biden has made is a consequence of global warming. And so
it's global boiling according to the
yes.
Marxist head of the United Nations, right?
Yeah, global boiling. Yeah, but it's interesting that all that insane heat doesn't get the globalists to tell those poor immigrants to stay home and not cross deserts, right? Isn't that interesting? We got to stop driving our cars, Jake, but if you want to come walk from Guatemala all the way through Mexico into the United States through deserts, well, that's social justice.
They don't have to be vaccinated.
They do not. And consequently, tuberculosis, and even leprosy is being found again in the United States. What a wonderful world. But Ron DeSantis, we've talked a lot about him. He's pushing back pretty hard, in particularly because of this latest hurricane that has wreaked havoc with parts of Florida. Jake, talk about the story.
Well, I got to tell you, DeSantis was peeved because President Biden said, in essence, that nobody intelligent cannot deny the impact of climate change on the world anymore. And of course, as you and I know, anytime anything with weather, is bad across the world, they cherry pick and they put together this narrative that it's apocalyptic, existential, and the world's going to end. By the way, we only have 5 years and about 310 days left. So his point was, enough of this nonsense.
When I talk about this with my university kids, and the university semester is about to start for me this week, and inevitably I'm sure this will come up again, one of the things I point out to my students, because they're completely brainwashed into this cult of climate change, and the first thing I ask them, all right, name a climate scientist. Can't do it. They can't do it. I asked them to name or give me a 5-minute explanation for how this works. They can't do it. That's the first thing you got to do. You show the kids that they don't know who any of these people are. They don't have any arguments that they can make. So the second thing I ask them is this: is it not the purpose of science? Is it not the purpose of science to try to disprove claims that other scientists makes? That's how science works,
Not
right?
anymore.
Somebody puts a hypothesis out there, then you try to disprove it, and as I point out to them, you can't get a dime, a nickel, a penny from any organization to try to disprove global warming, which also should make them very nervous. And then the third thing, Jake, is what you just said. Every 5 years since you and I remember 1970, I know you do too. I was just a little boy. You were, 25, 26?
Shut up.
I remember, though.
I was in junior high school.
I remember in the mid-70s, 75, 78, 80, 85, 90, we were told that by this time, we'd be underwater in New York, Florida. We were told that we wouldn't be able to breathe, that people would be dying from this. Absolute nonsense. That's the third thing I point out to my students. With all those clear lies, shouldn't we be suspicious? I know we have a video, and I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's look. You go.
Just real quick,
sure.
I want to say, in 1970, actually, when I went into high school, my social problems teacher had us read Paul Ehrlich. Mm-hmm. Paul Ehrlich had the book Population Bomb, and then this one came out in 74 called The End of Affluence, which is really anti-capitalistic. It really thinks there's too many people in the world. It wants the world to no longer eat meat and bugs, and the World Economic Forum loves this guy. He says we're in the 6th extinction right now. The world is actually dying. We only have a few years left. Well, he's been proven wrong 90% of his stuff. So the point is, I was taught that as a teenager and believed it till my dad took me aside and said, wait a minute here, and he educated me on it. By the way, you forgot to bring up the expert Greta Thunberg.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all Malthusian nonsense. I mean, this idea that everything you said, almost everything Ehrlich said, has been proven wrong. He's the only person who's been more wrong than him has been Freud over the last couple hundred years. I mean, he is completely wrong about all of this. And when, Jake, and I know we got a video, we'll go to that, but when did skepticism, which is a hallmark of scientific inquiry, be skeptical? Be skeptical, try to unprove things. When that went away, the more socialistically government agencies have become. They don't want to know the truth. The empiricism doesn't advance the cause of global socialism. So what they want is a very, very politicized science and the hard sciences in general.
It's a world of eco-socialism, eco-Marxism, or you could call it green tyranny. Mm-hmm. This is exactly what we're in the midst of. But we better get to that video before we forget.
Good.
Nobody intelligent can deny the impact of the climate crisis anymore. Just look around the nation and the world for that matter. Historic floods, intense droughts, extreme heat, deadly wildfires that have caused serious damage like we've never seen before.
Well, I think if you look, there was a storm that went on this almost exact track in 1896. So I think the notion that somehow hurricanes are something new, that's just false. And we've got to stop politicizing the weather and stop politicizing natural disasters. We know from history there have been times where it's been very busy in Florida, late 40s, early 50s. You had a lot of hits of significant hurricanes. So I think sometimes people need to take a breath and get a little bit of perspective here. But the notion that somehow if we just adopt, very left-wing policies at the federal level, that somehow we will not have hurricanes, that is a lie. And that is people trying to take what's happened with different types of storms and use that as a pretext to advance their agenda on the backs of people that are suffering.
I mean, what kind of fear-mongering are we getting from Biden? There isn't. So look around you, right? Because every time there's a fire, because the Federal Lands Bureau won't clear out the underbrush. Every time there's a fire, every time there's a hurricane, every time it snows 1 inch more than it should, every time you have a 3 or 4 spell where it's hotter than it usually is. This is the absolute opposite of science. Right? Don't investigate. Don't look for causes. Don't take a broad view. Let's just look at the latest fire, the latest rainstorm, and admit this has got to be climate change.
This is simply apocalyptic cherry picking to create a narrative. To bottom line, Duke, what it boils down to is to put fear into the people's minds. And so therefore, the government officials, the governors, the presidents, the head of the World Economic Forum or the United Nations who say there's global boiling, they can come along to save us. Did not Nancy Pelosi say with the Inflation Reduction Act, we have saved the planet? Think of the hubris, the arrogance of these charlatans.
Do you remember when Obama said on during his elected speech,
the oceans?
Right?
Yes.
This is the moment. Because I'm now, Barry Otero is now president. Yeah. This is the moment. And I love that because what he was doing was, without realizing it, he was giving the game away. His implication was, you got me as the president, now climate will go back to normal. And that's the argument, right? That more government, more restrictions, more power, less freedom for individuals is going to fix this, when it ain't going to fix anything. It's just going to change the nature of how the world works.
It makes me think of King Canute about 1,000 years ago. Remember when he sat by the ocean because they all thought he was godlike because it was victory in battle? And he said, oceans rise, and they didn't rise. And he looked at them and said, there's only the sovereign God who can control the oceans. His point was, don't look to the king to be godlike.
Let me give you another historical anecdote because it ties in. Back in the reign of Caligula in the 1st century AD, he was
he liked the kiddies.
He was the mad emperor.
And minions.
And so he got mad because he thought he was God. And so he didn't like that the ocean had caused some tidal waves, a couple of mini tsunamis. Yep. So what he did as the god, he sent out the Roman legions to teach the ocean god a lesson. And so Roman centurions had to wade into the ocean with whips and
to fight Neptune?
Whipped the ocean. Yep. This is the kind of delusion you get when, again, we get rid of the idea of a God that transcends nature, then some human being is going to have to ascend that throne. And like Barry Otero said, right, now, just because you elected me, this is the moment that the seas will begin to calm. And of course,
if I could add this too, because we mentioned a couple on a historical tangent. What DeSantis did there is he brought up history of the past. I think we have a headline here from back in, what was that, 1928. Florida hurricane, death amounts to 1,000. I mean, this has been happening in Florida for a long, long time. Hurricanes have been going on all throughout the world for a long time. But these apocalyptic narrative writers, they put this together, bottom line again, to put fear into the people. And what I love about DeSantis is he says the lying buck stops here. And then Biden has the audacity to say that you and I and our listening audience aren't intelligent enough to figure out that climate change is a hoax.
Yeah, we've got to take a short break. Afterwards, we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about DeSantis's response. Back again with Jake Jacobs, and we're talking about the climate change scam. Biden's just the officious, dismissive, smug, progressive way. You're an idiot if you don't believe us. You're an idiot if you don't. What happened in Hawaii, and I love this. What happened in Hawaii was clearly a problem with the power company. The fact that bureaucrats refused to remove dangerous brush in a very dry summer. And his response to that, after he got his butt off the beach and flew to Hawaii, finally, right, was look around you. All this man-made chaos is actually global warming.
And you know what gets me? If you understand Hawaiian politics, it's predominantly Democratic.
Yeah, overwhelmingly.
I mean, it's like overwhelmingly Democratic. The Hawaii Wildlife Management, for years they had been saying we need to clear the brush. We need to take care of the problem. If we don't take care of it now, we're going to have some serious problems down the road. And by the way, the infrastructure was controlled by Democrats, and they were lying now, putting the blame on Republicans, saying they didn't have enough money sent to Hawaii.
And let's be very clear. When Democrats and progressives like Biden say this is a man-made problem, it is never them. It's always Republicans.
Absolutely.
It's conservatives. It's capitalists. It's never, ever them. They keep flying their planes. John Kerry, right, in one plane trip, meaningless trip, to talk to Bilderbergers, right, or these great billion, these plutocrats who want to control everything. So uses more carbon in those flights than you and I will use in a year in our cars. It's unbelievable.
And by the way, he lives in
on the ocean.
Vineyard, on the ocean. But we have a picture here of Al Gore back in 2006 predicting that half of Florida would be underwater, and about 90% of his movie has been proven to be wrong.
More than 90%. And he's as wrong as your book.
Oh, you're right, Paul. Paul Ehrlich.
He's exactly.
Oh, yeah. He even said Manhattan would be underwater right now.
Yep. I mean, I remember being told that we wouldn't be able to grow food.
Yep.
Remember we were told that we would have to breathe through masks in the early 1980s. In the 70s, they said you won't be able to breathe the air. All this garbage, and you know, Al Gore really is a poor man's. Malthus, a poor
Malthusian,
man. Yeah, absolutely. He's not even good at it. I mean, there's no science behind what he says. And the other thing that gets me about Al Gore is, you know, I tell this to my university kids, they don't know. When I ask them, you can't name a climate change scientist. You can't give me a climate argument. So name somebody that you do know. And
Greta?
It's always
Al Gore and Greta. Probably Greta, right?
I get Al Gore first, because these kids, these 20-year-olds, had to watch that movie in kindergarten.
When I was teaching at Winneconne High School, the biology teacher used it, and I said to my students when they came in, I go, has he shown you any alternative viewpoints? So Heartland Institute down in Chicago had a beautiful response to the so-called global warming, and I showed that, and we had a classroom debate. That biology teacher was not very happy with me because he did not want both sides of the issue to be known.
How did the administration of the school handle it?
They didn't find out. At that particular point, they didn't find out.
Yeah, so. You know, and so with the students that I deal with, you make the point. I point this out that, you know, Did you know that Al Gore has no science in his background? He's never has a degree. And you know, when you ask him what they major in and you tell him, he was a theologian, right? He was going to be a priest. No wonder that the cult of global warming has become a religious ideology.
The same thing applies to this weather czar, climate czar, is John Kerry. Yeah. He's a hardcore leftist, a hypocrite, right, who lives high off the hog, who, by the way, now is going after agriculture. He says there's too much, believe it or not, too much food in the world that is causing the CO2 problem.
And don't forget that John Kerry is married to a billionaire capitalist who sells food.
He himself is a Forbes, by the way.
Exactly.
And she's a ketchup lady.
Right.
Yeah.
So he hates food, and yet he's got billions of dollars because he married her.
You know what bugs me about this? They want us to eat bugs. They want us to eat bugs.
Yep, and I have a video. If I thought we'd gone down this road, we could have put it in the video. It's a teacher lecturing a 6-year-old in a classroom. And the little girl says, I don't want to eat bugs. And she says, you don't have a choice.
It's kind of weird that I gave you a topic where there's only one right answer. We don't want to eat bugs, and it's gross. But should we be eating bugs? Yeah, because we're killing the world by raising cows and animals. So we need to just not get rid of cows, but try to balance our diet so that not so much of our land is being used to raise cows, because it's killing the ozone layer.
So what if you wanted to do
You don't have any evidence to support it. So there's only one right answer for this essay, and it's that Americans should be eating bugs. Everyone else in the world's eating them. It's healthy for the environment, and it's just, there's only one right answer.
She had to, I think it was a 7-year-old. You have to had a short essay about why we need to eat bugs. And the girl says, I want to not do that. I want to write an essay about why we shouldn't. And the teacher says to her, you don't have a choice. When it comes to this, you do not have an opinion. You must agree in your paper with what I'm telling you. And what I'm telling you is to save the world, you all have to eat bugs. But we have a second story before. I don't want time to run out without getting to it. And this story is also about ideology here to some degree. And this one, Jake, you picked this story. It's very interesting. Donna Brazile, who was on Fox for a while, a very strident, radical lefty, she actually said something that is very interesting. She went off about how Donald Trump's haters need to respect his movement, which is an interesting statement. In other words, it seems to me that she is saying, look, I hate Donald Trump. However, if you ignore his followers at your peril. Is that a fair summation of what she said?
Yeah, now, correct me if I'm wrong. She used to be the head of the Democratic National Committee.
Yes, she
That's
did.
Correct?
Yep.
And then now she's on the shows.
The pundits,
The pundits, okay.
And I guess she was let go by Fox about a year and a half ago. She used to be on Fox for a while.
Okay. So I suppose her point is, hey, be aware of the fact that we laughed at his movement in 2016, and maybe it could come to bite us in the tuchus again in 2024. You think maybe she's thinking in terms of third-party candidates like a Bull Moose, Teddy Roosevelt of 1912, or Ross Perot of 1992?
I think she is a redoubtable progressive, and I think that she would like to see a younger progressive than Biden. This is not her leaving the plantation.
Okay.
This is her realizing that Hillary Clinton ignored the plantation and got beat. And if we don't want that to happen again, we've got to up our game, I think is what she's saying. And I think she rightly points out, she's implying at least, that Joe Biden is not the guy to bring us in to where we want to go. That Biden is vulnerable in ways that other, perhaps, Democrats wouldn't be.
All right, well, let's listen to hear what she has to say, and then we'll come back and comment.
I'm old enough to say this. I've seen two movements outside of the social justice movements in my life on the political side. One was the Reagan movement. Reagan had a hold on his base, the country at large. They saw him as someone who was willing to stand up for American values, whatever that might have meant. Now, I thought it was reactionary. The other movement I saw was Barack Obama, hope and change. That galvanized the American people. I've never seen anything like this with Donald Trump. I mean, what doesn't kill you make you stronger? I mean, being convicted, being indicted, that's making him stronger. Raising $10 million using an ugly mugshot to raise money. This is a movement. And anyone who thinks that you can apply the old political rules to trying to defeat this candidate based on he's scary, he's ugly, whatever you might want to call him, this is a movement.
Yeah, see, she made my point exactly. Reagan was real, but he was a reactionary.
Okay.
Right? And then Obama was the real deal with hope and change, which is ironic because Reagan brought optimism and a good deal of change.
That's why he was able to win a significant number of Democrats and independents.
Yes, and Obama did nothing that he promised that he was going to do except to undermine American values.
But let me ask you this, Duke, and I know we have differences of opinion on this. He is somebody, does have a hold on his base. It's unbelievable. He beats every other candidate by huge numbers. I mean, right now, to me, it's a slam dunk. He has the nomination.
Well, the left's attack on Trump has made that so. I think, and I don't know if Donna...
You said that was a part of their strategy?
Yeah, I don't think Donna Brazile either knows it or she's being disingenuous. Look, if you're the Democrats, you want to run against Trump. I mean, that was their strategy. That's where all this indictment stuff, that's where the mugshot came in. How many Democrats, by the way, progressives, have come out and said that was a mistake? Because it was a mistake. I think what they wanted was to run against Trump, and they were going to throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at him because they figured. And I still think there's truth to this, Jake. I made this statement a couple weeks ago that Trump owns the 38%. He owns them. She's right. But my concern 3 weeks ago when we talked about this was, can he get anybody else?
Middle America, women, independents.
I still don't think he can. So she's right. He is formidable with his base, but his base is not enough. So put it this way, if you had a serious Republican running against Biden, I think that Republican would win easily.
You're saying a DeSantis or
I think
a
so.
Nikki Haley?
Somebody. I think if you had a responsible conservative with a good optimistic worldview, I think that person could appeal to Democrats who are getting hammered by this environment, this economy, the independents who
are sick of the wokeism,
who despise Trump and have voted for Biden the first time by holding their nose. They're not coming back to Trump. So if
they're not going to go to Biden, are they? I can't imagine they'd go to Biden.
Think about this for a second. If you've been convinced, if you dropped Trump because of all this lying manipulation, the endless lies, the conspiracies, the indictments, if you left Trump for that, unless you feel sorry for him that he's being picked on, why would you go back to him? Now, let me ask you this. How many of those independents who dumped Trump would consider a DeSantis or a Haley?
A significant number.
I would think so.
I think so, yeah.
Now, the question is, if it's anybody but Trump, let's say on the Republican side, which is probably unlikely at this stage.
Right.
If it's anybody not Trump, how much of that 38% that he's guaranteed would actually vote for somebody but him? I think a lot of those people would write his name in if he wasn't on the ballot.
I think this is where his VP candidate is very important because that can make the difference of maybe 10, 12%.
And you remember what I said 3 weeks ago? I wish he would stop attacking DeSantis and take him in and say, look, this is a good man. We don't agree with everything. It's not his time yet. But let's try to work together. I'm going to offer him the vice presidency if he's willing to take it. Groom him for 20.
Yeah, when he starts attacking DeSantis' policies in Florida, I'm thinking, first of all, you supported him when he was defending those policies.
Conservative
and
policies.
You live in Florida, and you tell people to move to Florida, and now you're attacking him, and you seem schizoid.
Let me comment on that. You're attacking his conservative policies. How do you square that with the 38% who want to vote for you because they think you're conservative? Yep. And here's another point. By pretending to be left of DeSantis, do you really think there's a single Democrat who's going to... No. So what's the end game here? You're going to get your 38%. Is that going to be enough? Now, again, imagine this. As I said a couple of weeks ago, what if at the last minute you pull Biden or Biden backs out and then there's a young, energetic
Newsom
progressive, right, who doesn't have to debate, doesn't have to campaign? Who do you think those votes are going to?
They're going to go for Newsom.
I kind of monopolized the last couple of minutes. Take a moment and just close up for us.
Well, here we are, Duke. We're dealing with a situation where whether it's the climate or it's COVID, everybody's declaring it's times of emergency. Turn to Big Brother, turn to the government to save us. And we know that in the end, what it does is it diminishes our liberties, and we need to be aware of that and fight back against that.
Amen. And imagine this. Imagine a socialist global world. Let's pretend for just 1 second global warming is real. It's not, but let's pretend. The entire country is subordinated under socialism. Do you think that socialist inertia will fix the problem anyway?
Nope, it's the road to serfdom.
Neither do I. Thank you, Jake. And that's going to wrap up the show. If you enjoy the program, please subscribe to our brand new podcast channel. Simply search Dr. Duke Show on your favorite podcast platform. It's free. And if you're on Rumble, please follow our new Rumble channel at rumble.com/FreedomProject. Freedom Project is one word. For all of us at the Dr. Duke Show, I am Dr. Duke, and this is P. Jake Jacobs. Thanks. We'll see you next time.